we are privileged to have James Hammett, the Managing Director of UK Tram, as our keynote speaker today. James is going to look at the landscape of light rail and trams across the British Isles, which sets the scene for the rest of today. James began his career as an apprentice engineer in Seaton Tramways. Gosh, back in 1995, you youngin', James. James stayed in the organization for almost 18 years and undertook a senior role as operations manager and chief engineer during that time. James has subsequently joined the UK Trams as a general manager and became MD in 2017. James is the founding member of the Light Rail Safety Standards Board. So please, if you could give a kind welcome to James, and James, if I can bring you up to stage.
Thank you, and good morning. It's great to be here and great to see so many people in the audience. What a fantastic venue to start with. So, as I say, honoured to be here, and thank you to PWI for the invite. I'm very mindful that I've got to set the tone for today, so I'll try and get us off to a good start. But those of you, there's a number of you in the audience that do know me. I do like to talk, and I'm very impressed actually how you managed to condense my career to a very short space of time. Because you asked me about it, I'd fill the whole morning talking about what we've worked on and what we've done over the years. So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about UK Tram for those that you don't know, and apologies to those in the audience who are members or who do know what we do. But we are the trade body for light rail in the UK and the wider British Isles. Don't press us too much on British Isles. We encompass Ireland as well because the Luas over in Dublin had nowhere else to go, so we extend our arm out over to our colleagues across the water. But we also encompass the Isle of Man, where obviously their original trams are still running and running in daily service. So you know, we cover the range from heritage right the way up to modern day systems and looking at new what's on the horizon, what's coming forward. We're made up of basically everyone from within the industry, the owners, the operators, a number of which are sat in the room here today, but also trade members, so those that may supply the light rail sector, and again, with the exhibitors downstairs, a number of those that are members of UK Tram come along to our forums, and we're really here as an organisation to make light rail the best it can be. You know, we talk about the growth of light rail, and we'll be going through in my presentation now about some of the exciting things that are happening, but primarily we are here to make light rail as good as it can be. You know, the end user at the end of the day, if customers don't like what we're delivering, then we won't get more light rail and we won't be successful. So the end goal is to make sure what that product is out there is as good as it can be. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and as I say, we're partly government funded, but we're also membership funded. So we're very reliant on the support from our members, and also government. I'm pleased to say, as I mentioned later on in my presentation, some good initial meetings with the new government. Always a little bit of fear and trepidation when there is a change of government. What's going to be next? What are their thoughts? What's the landscape? You know, we've been fighting the corner for light rail since UK Tram was incepted, and it's something that we carry on doing. But you never quite know until you get in with the new ministers. So the saying about our members, very wide and very varied. So we do have quite a task of trying to look after all the different facets from day-to-day operational issues. I can be talking to someone about antisocial behaviour on a network, through to issues they may have with railware, right the way through to them being sitting down with government talking about funding for new schemes. How's the funding going to come through? How are we tapping into those local transport initiatives and what's being planned for cities in the future, and where light rail can play a part? So it is very, very varied and very wide, and there is only a team of 5 of us within UK Tram. There's a quick snapshot of a number of our members. I'm sure a lot of you will recognise a number of them on there. It's not an exhaustive list because we're always taking on new members as we go, so apologies for anyone who's joined recently, who's not up on the list there. And also people like to change their logos. Nearly every time I do one of these presentations and you go up there, someone go, oh, you haven't got our latest logo on there. So again, apologies if that's the case. So as I was saying, what do? We promote trams. We hopefully get the message out about what light rail can do across the sector, not just to the industry, the local transport authorities, but to the general public. One of the things that we found quite widely was that actually the members of the public don't know how to react around a tramway. If they haven't got one in your cities, it's a bit alien to them. But as we find in the cities where people have got light rail, they absolutely love it. You only have to look at Edinburgh. That was a difficult inception, but you go up there now, everyone loves the tramway and everyone's very proud of it, and that's testament to the team up there of how they've turned that round. But we share group industry best practice. We look at competence and training. It's great to see, obviously, that PWI do a lot of courses along that, and I know a number of people from the light rail sector have studied with PWI. It's about keeping that knowledge coming through. And as was said at the beginning, I'm relatively young. Yes, one of the reasons I'm probably stood up here now was when I first joined the light rail sector in the wider groups. Someone said you stood out by a mile because you actually had your natural colour hair. It wasn't just a sea of grey. So we're very, very big on pushing the next generation coming through. It's something that UK Tram is very passionate about, and obviously something that I'm very passionate about. So we look at the training and development of people within the organisations. We've just launched our Rising Stars initiative to try and make sure that that talent within light rail stays and grows. And we also are the link to international. UK Tram represents the UK across with UITP and internationally. So we share the best practice, not just in the UK, but across the whole international sector. We are also, our subsidiary company is the Light Rail and Safety Standards Board, and you'll be hearing from my colleague Craig O'Brien later on. I won't steal his thunder about what he's going to talk about there, but we work alongside each other. They do the safety stuff, and we pretty much do the rest. Okay. Brief snapshot, you can see what we're looking on within UK Tram. We're just coming into towards the end of year 3 of a 3-year business plan. But this was all delivered under light rail strategy. The last government endorsed the light rail strategy. We are now currently getting the new government to look at our light rail strategy and get behind that. But under this, we look at the areas from customer experience, sustainability and decarbonisation, all those topics you would kind of expect to see in how we can improve the sector. And all of this is then sort of captured within benchmarking and best practice. It's about that networking, it's about the collaboration, it's about events like this. It's about sharing that knowledge and making the connections. So, enough about UK Tram now. This is a little bit about the landscape, as we're saying, in the UK and the British Isles. Our name, UK Tram, is probably not the best name. It's a bit of a historical name because we do everything that is basically classed as other guided transport systems. So, we're talking from very light rail, LRT, tramways, tram train, even like the Heathrow pod, the little guided pod that goes around Terminal 5. That falls under our remit. So we are looking at much more across mass transit than we are just tram. So the good news is, while we compare ourselves, a lot of people say to me, James, you look at, the UK is so far behind Europe. Well, yes, we got rid of our trams, apart from obviously Blackpool and the Isle of Man, if you include them, whereas a lot of European cities didn't, they reinvested. But actually, when you look at what is being done in the UK, we are trying to play catch up. Yes, the UK is not always geared up for that to happen quickly, something that we're trying to work on with the new government and with the sector. But there are a lot of exciting things still happening in the UK. We're here in Nottingham, which I remember when the 2 extensions came in Nottingham, it absolutely helped transform the system and the network. And there's a number of people sat in the room that were involved in that. But there is still quite a lot going on. And then the real key thing is, as I said, the recent meeting with the Minister, is they've asked us to represent the sector feeding into the new integrated transport plan. They want to know where light rail is going to fit best, what's the best solution. And we're always very honest that, I could sit here and say, we need light rail in every city and town in the UK. No, actually, we want light rail where it's going to be successful and do the job that we know it can do. So we need to make sure that's targeted and that is going in the right place. And that's why we've been invited by government to actually be the people that drive that into this new integrated transport plan. So we're looking forward to doing that and supporting the sector and supporting the government going forward. So, the systems. We've got 12 light rail, LRT, tramway systems, whatever you want to call them, in the UK. But as you can see, every single one on there, something is happening. We're not just running the day-to-day. Here we are running it along. There's new fleets. There's extensions. There's tram train capacity. There's renewals, but improvements that we go. Every single system has got something going on, which kind of demonstrates that there's a real great opportunity for investment, for people to be involved. When you look at it, well, what's new? There's still the same number of systems. Yes, but all those systems are growing. All those systems are investing. All of them are seeing the need for more capacity. They're bigger trams, longer trams, more frequent service. It's all still ramping up. And despite COVID and the hit that had on the sector, it is still growing. And every single system has got plans for what's next. What's next, whether that be tram train or whether that be new extensions. There is still plenty happening out there. And I suppose where we're privileged within the sector is we get to see how that's all happening and what's in the pipeline. People in the wider world, and possibly in the sector, don't necessarily see that day to day. So to us, it becomes the norm. But to everyone else, it can be quite an eye-opener to see how much stuff there is in the pipeline coming ahead. So we do know, and hopefully everyone sat in the room has heard about what's happening over in South Wales with the Metro. Again, starting very small. Initially, this is going to be part of their Metro system, but there is going to be a short section of tram to start with down to Cardiff Bay. This is the start of their plans of putting trams on street in Cardiff. And I mean, that since Edinburgh, that's the first time we're going to actually have a new tram type network. But again, this has come from tram train. This is where we're talking about integrating the modes. This is where what's going to work for the area's need. And this is where you are connecting those valleys and bringing them into the city. Again, it's not a quick win. It's a slow burn. It's going to take time to build and it's going to take time to do. But the investment that's going down in South Wales is amazing. We've got the privilege. Our Light Rail Operators Committee is going there in December, so we get to go and see this new fantastic depot that's being built there. And TFW, Transport for Wales, are one of our newest members within UK Tram, so obviously they've been welcomed and are learning so much from all our colleagues and experts within the sector to help them when they actually start operating trams in the future. A lot of you, we talk about innovation and we talk about new things. VLR, it's not really done much abroad because they tend to focus much more on the LRT systems. But in a lot of smaller towns and smaller cities, there is that possibility of being able to utilise a very light rail vehicle where you've got fixed infrastructure. The key thing with light rail, and I'm probably preaching to the converted here, is anything railway bound that's fixed infrastructure, that's where it leads to the investment. If you put a bus line in or a bus network in, it can be moved. If you build tracks in the road or in concrete somewhere, it's not going anywhere. You've got stations built, you've got things. That's where you get that regeneration, you get those transport hubs, and that's how things build. BCMIO have got the Innovation Centre in Dudley, and they are testing the VLR vehicle down there. But it's not just the vehicle. They're looking at lightweight track form, which is something you guys, I'm sure, will all be great interest to you, is how we actually make the track form lighter, more affordable, easier to put in, and also easier to replace when it comes to rail replacement. Those of you in Nottingham, Lace Market, it's a tight curve. Yes, trams can go around tight curves, but we all know that causes a lot of wear. A lot of work needs to be done around that. If we can make that track renewals and everything done a lot quicker, then it not only does it bring down cost, it reduces reduction. We're talking about the end game here for the end user, the customer. We don't want the tramway being shut too frequently for maintenance. We want to make sure that things like this can help impact those systems that are already in and new systems that are about to be built. So we quite often get people ask what's coming next. There's a number that you would have heard of, possibly seen in the news. Those of you that read tramways and urban transit, there is stuff in there. But it's a mix. The biggest potential for the UK is probably tram train. Take the capacity out of the main networks and have stuff that can then run up on the street, free up those overcrowded stations, but have that frequency and reliability of what light rail can bring. But West Yorkshire, prime city, hopefully third time lucky for Leeds. get a light rail system up in there. It's been tried before. It's been looked at several options. The key difference now is it's over the much wider area. We're not just looking at the city, we're looking at the region. And that's where things have really changed in terms of light rail. And then we've got Kennex and we've got Cork, which is based on the success of Dublin. I mean, the LUAS system, for those of you who haven't been, absolutely fantastic. They've hit the problem, though. They're at capacity. They've extended their trams. They've got longer vehicles. They've got more on there. They are now still struggling with the increased patronage there to actually cope with the demand, because it shows how successful the light rail system has been in Dublin. And we're seeing that in the UK as well. With VLR, very light rail, revolutionary light rail. Now, don't get confused. One of my biggest bugbears is people talking about very light rail. There's two differences here. We talk about like the Coventry vehicle, which is light rail in a city, running around the roads. And there's what is revolutionary light rail, which is your commuter lines, your branch lines, stuff where it is running not on street. There is a difference. Unfortunately, they've both been put under the name of very light rail. It's confusing. They're set out to do two different things, but they have got options and great potential for making those connections to, especially with revolutionary light rail, those old branch line connections. We talked about Restore Your Railways. We were talking about it last night. Connecting those places that just need that short transport link. We're not talking about a massive LRT system here. We're talking about making those connections, feeding in as hubs. You need something that doesn't need to necessarily have the mainline signalling, the mainline railway and infrastructure, something that's a little bit lighter, a little bit more cheaper to operate and doesn't necessarily run on signalling system, can be run on line of sight. It gives you those options. So it won't surprise you that there's a number of those that we're looking at in the UK, and Simon Coulthard, our colleague from Network Rail, from the Light Rail team, will be able to tell you more about it. I could talk about this all day, but I haven't got the time. Restore Your Railways. I know it's come out from government saying that Restore Your Railways has put on hiatus. Doesn't mean the projects have stopped. It means it will be coming out under a different name. Restore Your Railways was a Boris thing, but obviously these connections are still needed to be made. So watch this space in terms of how these projects go forward. But the guys that are working on it are still working on them in the background. And as I said, tram train, is probably the biggest next thing in the UK to push things forward. As we see there, there's a lot more on the list. And this is just scratching the surface. These are ones that are fairly well forward and fairly well achievable. There's a lot more once you start diving into the potential of where they can go. Manchester, for example, have got a potential of 15 more lines due to tram train if they look at that as an option. That's mind-blowing. You think how big the Manchester network already is, but then you start to talk about another 15 extensions on there. That's massive. And then we've got places like West of England and other places up in Scotland. We've got West of England have turned around, and again, a bit like they did in West Yorkshire, they won't come out and say what mode they're having, because again, they're making the conscious decision of looking what problem they've got and seeing what best solution they have. West of England have come out and said they wanted to look at Metro. They've realised that Metro is not viable in Bristol. Well, we all know what the next step down from that is in terms of mass transit. If you want that capacity and you want that thing, it's going to be some form of light rail. Again, we are engaging with West of England on guiding them through that and looking at the options and how things can move forward. And that's where our Centre of Excellence in UK Tram comes to the fore. That's a group of volunteers that were recently recognised at the Global Light Rail Awards for the work that they've been doing on trying to help new schemes take off and push forward. So there is plenty going on. We've been helping these by feeding into the DFT. The Centre of Excellence have done a tram tracker that is updated monthly to see on where projects are, see where they need support, see what we can do to help them move forward. We've done a route map to help these new the systems go through the pains and the barriers that everyone's learnt from in the past. Don't make the same mistakes. We see it time again. Why do we keep reinventing the wheel? Let's try and keep people moving forward. And saying about the Restore Your Railways, well, actually out of that came the mixed-use railways, which obviously work there with Network Rail, LRSSB, and the DFT, is still going on. And one of the key things, when we spoke to the minister, they said, where are the quick wins? And I said to the minister, I said, well, the quick wins are, so we need to keep the progress going. We need that pipeline of work where we've got extensions, we've got powers, keep building. If we can keep building, not only does that keep the competency up in the sector, it keeps the projects going, and then you can be looking at the next projects. Edinburgh is a prime example where they've got powers for one extension already. They can be applying for the powers for the next extension if they get on and keep building. That's where government have got to realise that you've got to keep that progress going. We get hammered quite often saying that light rail is expensive. Well, it's only expensive if you keep starting projects. All the extensions in Manchester, by the time they'd done a couple of them, they were coming in on time, on budget, as was Edinburgh's latest extension. It can be done, but they need to keep that pipeline going. So that's one of the big pushes we have had with government. So, without having to have the cards flagged up at me to say that I'm running out of time, that is very much a whistle-stop overview of what is happening. I am around for the rest of the day because I am mindful that is very much a high-level skim of what is happening in the UK at the moment. So I'm about for any more questions later on as we go. And I thank you for your attention. Hopefully I haven't set the tone at too much doom and gloom as we go along. I look forward to the rest of the presentations for the day.